Please don't hit me, she whispered. The Mafia boss went silent when he noticed her hidden bruises. Lena Morel had a habit of making herself small. She did it without thinking, shoulders in, eyes down, steps light enough that the floor would barely notice her passing. She had learned this skill slowly, over years, the way most people learn things that keep them safe. She did not think of it as hiding. She thought of it as surviving. On a Tuesday morning in early November, she arrived at the Grand Celeste Hotel at 6:45, 15 minutes before her shift began. The hotel stood tall in the heart of the city, all polished marble and golden light, the kind of place that made ordinary people feel underdressed just by looking at it. Lena had been cleaning its rooms for 9 months. She liked the work. It was quiet, and it kept her hands busy, and when her hands were busy, her mind had less room to wander into places she did not want to visit. Her supervisor handed her a new assignment that morning without looking up from his clipboard. Penthouse suite. The guest had arrived late the night before and had requested no service until further notice, but the request had expired at 7. She was to go up, clean, and leave without disturbing anything that did not need to be disturbed. Lena took her cart to the elevator, pressed the top floor button, and watched the numbers climb. The penthouse hallway was different from the rest of the hotel. Quieter, somehow. The carpet was thicker. The lighting was warmer. There were no other doors in sight, just one, at the far end of the corridor, heavy and dark. She knocked twice, waited, heard nothing, and used the key card her supervisor had given her. The suite was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city, and even at that hour, the view made her pause for just a moment. She pushed her cart inside and began her work: towels, surfaces, the bathroom, the little things that most people never noticed unless they were done wrong. She was careful. She was always careful. She was reaching up to straighten a framed painting on the wall near the window when the door opened behind her. She did not hear footsteps. She only heard the door, and then a presence, the particular kind of stillness that certain people carry into rooms, the kind that made the air feel different. She turned, and in the same moment, the man who had entered raised one arm, reaching past her toward the shelf beside the painting. Her body reacted before her mind could stop it. Please don't hit me. Please don't hit me. The silence that followed was unlike anything she had ever felt. It was not the silence of a room with no sound. It was the silence of something stopping, completely, suddenly, like a clock that had been running for years and simply quit. Dante Mancini stood exactly where he had been standing, arms still half raised, hands still reaching for nothing now. He was tall, with dark eyes and a face that was used to being unreadable. Men who worked for him had described him many ways over the years: difficult, precise, cold, brilliant. Not one of them had ever seen him look the way he looked in that moment. Still. He lowered his arm slowly. He did not speak. His eyes moved from her face to her hands, which were trembling at her sides, and then to the sleeve of her uniform, which had shifted when she raised her arms. Beneath it, along her wrist and up her forearm, were bruises. They were old enough to have turned a faded yellow at the edges, but recent enough that the darker center had not yet faded completely. He looked at her face again. "What is your name?" he asked. His voice was quiet. Not soft. Dante Mancini's voice was never exactly soft, but quiet in a way that she had not expected. There was no edge in it. No impatience. She swallowed. "Lena," she said. "Lena Morel. I work for the hotel. I can come back later if..." "You don't have to go," he said. He walked past her to the window and stood with his back to her, looking out at the city. She stood very still, unsure what to do. After a moment, she turned back to the painting and straightened it with hands that had almost stopped shaking. She finished the suite in 20 minutes. When she left, he was still at the window. He did not say anything else. Neither did she. The next morning, her supervisor told her she had been reassigned. The guest in the penthouse had requested the same staff member each day. She assumed it was a complaint about something she had done wrong, and her stomach dropped until her supervisor added, without any particular expression, that the guest had left a note of appreciation and a generous tip with her name on it. She went back up on Wednesday. And Thursday. And Friday. Each day, Dante was there. Each day, he kept his distance with a kind of deliberateness that she slowly began to recognize. He did not crowd her. He did not watch her too closely. He moved to a different part of the suite while she worked, as though he were conscious of giving her space. He spoke to her occasionally, about small things, ordinary things. The city. The weather. Whether she wanted coffee, which he had brought up from the kitchen downstairs in a separate cup. She said no to the coffee the first time. She said yes on Thursday. It was very good coffee. She was not naive. She knew what kind of man Dante Mancini was, in the way that people who live carefully come to know things, through the texture of a room, the way other people moved around him, the particular quiet of men who stood near him when he walked through the lobby. She had seen that kind before. She had been close to one, once. Too close, and for too long. But Dante was not like Victor Renz. She could not explain how she knew this, only that she did, somewhere in the part of herself that had learned, through pain, to read a room very quickly. Victor had been charming at the start, generous and attentive in the way that certain people are generous and attentive when they want something. It had taken her almost 2 years to understand that what Victor wanted was not her company or her happiness, but her compliance. By the time she understood this fully, she had already lost most of what she had, her apartment, her savings, her sense of what was normal. She had left 8 months ago with a bag of clothes, a bruised arm, and a job that had been offered by a woman at a shelter who knew someone at the Grand Celeste. She had not told anyone at the hotel about Victor. She had not told anyone, anywhere, except the woman at the shelter. And even then, she had kept the worst parts to herself. She did not tell Dante either. Not at first. But on the 5th day, a Friday afternoon, she dropped a small glass bottle from her cart while cleaning the bathroom counter, and it shattered against the tile floor. The sound was sharp and sudden, and she flinched so hard she hit the counter behind her with her elbow. Dante appeared in the doorway a second later. He looked at the glass on the floor and then at her, and he did not say anything dramatic or make any large movement. He simply asked if she was all right. "I'm fine," she said. "I'm sorry. I'll clean it up." "I know you'll clean it up," he said. "That isn't what I asked." She looked up at him then. And something in her, the part that had been holding on very tightly for a very long time, loosened just slightly. "I startle easily," she said. "I'm working on it." He nodded once. "You don't have to explain yourself," he said. He found a pair of shoes from the closet and placed them near the bathroom door without being asked, so that she could step over the glass safely. Then he returned to his desk. She thought about that small gesture for the rest of the day. What she did not know, and would not learn until much later, was that Dante had made a phone call that Friday evening. He had a great many people who gathered information for him. It was a necessary part of the life he had built, a life that operated in the spaces between what was legal and what was not, though Dante himself lived by a code so strict it would have surprised people who thought they understood him. One of his men ran a search on Victor Renz within 24 hours. What came back made Dante set down his glass of water very carefully on the table. Victor was not gone. He was in the city. He had been seen near the hotel on 2 separate occasions in the past 3 weeks. He had a history, not a clean one. And the last known address Dante's men could find for Lena had belonged to Victor. She had fled. Victor had not accepted this quietly. Dante called his property manager the next morning and arranged for a small private apartment, 2 blocks from the hotel, to become available immediately. He had his assistant reach out to the hotel's HR office with a quiet suggestion that Lena Morel might be a strong candidate for a new live-in staff position that came with housing. It was framed as a promotion. It was handled through proper channels. No one asked questions that Dante didn't want asked. Lena received the offer on a Monday. She stood in her supervisor's office, reading the letter twice, certain she had misunderstood something. She accepted. She had no reason not to, and the alternative, her current room in a shared house 40 minutes from the hotel by bus, was not somewhere she had ever felt entirely settled. She moved in on Wednesday. The apartment was quiet and clean and had a window that faced a small courtyard with a tree in it. She sat in the kitchen that first evening and ate a bowl of soup she had made herself and felt, for the first time in a very long while, something close to calm. She did not see Dante for 11 days after that. He had checked out of the hotel the same week. She told herself this was fine. She told herself she had not expected anything different. She was at the market near the apartment on a Saturday afternoon when she heard a voice she recognized. Victor. He appeared at the end of the aisle, older than she remembered, or maybe just more tired, and the moment he saw her, his expression changed into something she knew well. Not quite anger. Not quite warmth. The particular combination of the two that had always meant trouble. "Lena," he said. He walked toward her. She did not run. Her feet would not cooperate. She stood very still, bag of groceries in hand, heart loud in her chest, and she thought, not here. Not like this. Not after everything. She never found out exactly what Victor intended to say next, because a man appeared at the corner of the aisle, and then another. They stood quietly, not blocking Victor, simply present. And then Dante himself came around from the other direction and stopped a few feet away. He was not in a suit that day. He wore a dark jacket and had his hands in his pockets. He looked at Victor the way one might look at something that needed to be dealt with, not with fury, but with the absolute certainty of a man who has already decided how a situation ends. "You should leave," Dante said. He addressed Victor without raising his voice, without any particular drama. "You won't come near her again." "That isn't a request." Victor opened his mouth. He looked at the two men standing quietly nearby. He looked at Dante's face. He made a rapid calculation, and whatever he found there apparently resolved his uncertainty. He left. He did not look back. Lena set down her grocery bag on the nearest shelf because her hands were not steady enough to keep holding it. Dante walked over and stood beside her, not touching her, not saying anything for a moment. "How long have you known where I was?" she asked. "Long enough," he said. She looked at him. "Why?" He was quiet for a moment. "Because you said 4 words to me in a hotel suite, and I have not been able to stop thinking about them since." He paused. "And because no one should have to flinch like that. Not ever." She did not cry in the market. She saved that for later, that evening, sitting at her kitchen table by the window with the courtyard tree outside. They were not bad tears. They were the kind that come when something that has been tightly wounded for a very long time is finally allowed to unwind. She called Dante the following afternoon. He had left his number with her in the market, written on the back of a receipt, in handwriting that was surprisingly neat. "I want to talk," she said. "All right," he said. "But I need you to understand something first. I don't need saving." There was a brief pause on the other end. "I know," he said. "I'm not trying to save you. I'm trying to be someone who doesn't make things worse." That was, she thought, a good answer. Possibly the best answer he could have given. They met for coffee the next morning, not at the hotel, but at a small place nearby with wooden chairs and windows that needed cleaning, the kind of place where no one paid attention to anyone else. She told him some of what had happened. Not all of it, she wasn't sure she would ever tell all of it to anyone, but enough. He listened without interrupting. He asked one question when she finished, "Are you doing better now?" "Yes," she said. Slowly. "But yes." He nodded. "Good." Victor Renz was served with a legal restraining order 6 days later, through a lawyer Dante arranged and paid for without telling Lena until afterward. She was not pleased that he hadn't asked her first. She told him so, clearly. He accepted this without argument. "You're right," he said. "I should have asked. It won't happen again." She appreciated that more than she let on. Weeks passed. Then months. Lena kept her job at the hotel and began taking evening classes, something she had been meaning to do for years and had always found a reason to postpone. Dante stayed in the city longer than he had originally planned. He did not announce this. He did not make it into something it wasn't. He was simply there, steadily, quietly, in the way that certain people are present without requiring recognition for it. She flinched less. He noticed, though he never said so. She noticed that he noticed. One morning, several months after the day she had first whispered those 4 words into a hotel suite and changed everything, Lena sat across from Dante at the same small coffee place with the wooden chairs. The light outside was soft and gray. She had told him something funny that had happened in class the night before, and he had laughed, actually laughed, a real one, not the controlled and careful kind she had seen him use with other people. She looked at him across the table and thought, this is what it feels like. This is what it is supposed to feel like. Not perfect. Not without history. Not without the slow, careful work of learning to trust again, of learning to speak honestly, of learning that a raised arm across a room is just a raised arm and nothing more. But real. And warm. And, most importantly, safe. She picked up her coffee cup. He was already looking at her, in the quiet way he did sometimes, as if he were very certain of something and saw no reason to rush it. Neither of them was waiting for something to go wrong. For the first time in longer than she could remember, neither was she.